days of incessant rains caused by shear line. Experts and officials are even saying that in just a 24-hour period, the volume of rainfall exceeded that of Typhoon Ondoy.
With inflation still posing a threat, is the 6 to 7% growth target for 2023 still attainable? And what does this mean for the common Pinoy household? We'll get RCBC Chief Economist Mike Ricafort to weigh in.
And Justice Secretary Remulla is seeking out the executive branch's position on the Congress's calls to allow the ICC probe into the drug war. And one of the things he wants clarity on is whether the Philippines should rejoin the ICC to allow that investigation.
Welcome to the show. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Sean Yao.
And I'm Danny Laurel.
Our big story for tonight, Northern Samar suffering its worst flooding in the province's history as it has since been placed under a state of calamity. Experts claim that the rains dumped in the province was more than that of Typhoon Ondoy that caused massive flooding in Metro Manila and nearby provinces back in 2009. Let's get updates now from the ground. We have with us News 5's Mon Gualvez. Mon, una-una, kamusta ang panahon dyan? Malakas pa rin ba yung pag-ulan?
Gretchen, bagamat hindi na tuloy-tuloy yung buhos ng ulan pero nakararanas pa rin ng pag-ulan dito sa malaking bahagi ng Northern Samar. But just to compare, this is not just as hard as what the residents of the province experienced in the past days.
Mon, how are families and individuals coping with the rains? Have they been evacuated already?
Well, Gretchen, most of the families and individuals I've met, particularly here in Catarman, Northern Samar, are actually either cleaning up mud from their houses or having been left without a home at all after the inundation that they have experienced due to the shear line in the province. At the moment, there are already 84,490 affected families, or around 354,000 individuals in the whole of Northern Samar. More than 2,000 from the town of Catarman are still in the evacuation centers. Gretchen.
Okay, totoo ba na
Mon, kamustahin lang muna natin ang lagay ng mga pagbaha dyan. At the moment, kamusta yung infrastructure? Of course, kung i-compare natin sa Ondoy, hindi naman ganun karami yung mga gusali dyan. At it's not as thick or heavily populated as Metro Manila. But can you paint us a picture of the destruction dun sa mga bahay at mga gusali? Mukhang nawala na si Mon.
Mon? Looks
Okay,
like
eto nga, no?
the signal's been being affected by the weather.
Yeah, usually when it's really cloudy, di ba?
Nevertheless, guys, apart from those rains and flooding that we had in Visayas, there's also that recent earthquake that we had rocking the provinces in Mindanao, and President Bongbong Marcos was in General Santos City this morning.
Yeah, actually, I think Marie is just telling me right now that Mon is back on the line.
Great.
Mon? Hi. Can you hear us, Mon?
Hi, Sean. As I was saying, yeah, I can hear you. I hope I'm clear with you.
Yes,
It's
go
not
ahead.
too bad. Go ahead.
As I was saying a while ago, As I was saying a while ago, you're correct, Sean.
Okay, Mon, it seems like we
Mukhang
don't know
mahirap
if
talaga yung
it's
signal dyan because of
we don't know if it's the rains that's messing with the signal right now, but we'll try to fix that and get out to Mon in just a little bit. But yes, the province of Samar as well as the Bicol Peninsula has been experiencing rain since last week, and Pag-asa has given them the proper warnings. However, sobrang dami talaga nung
They
amount
say
of
it
rain.
is a month's worth of rain, and to compare to Typhoon Ondoy, I wonder what the residents are going through right now. But apart from the floods, it's also the damage to agriculture that's worrying. Kasi ito cropping season na from this month to May. And sinasabi nila 47 million na yung damage to agriculture.
Let's try to confirm that fact with Mon. I think he is back on the phone. Mon, hi. Can we do a quick check if you can hear us okay in the studio?
Yes, I can hear you now loud and clear.
Great.
Okay,
I hope
so can
klaro
we...
din ako sa inyo ngayon.
Ito na.
Lumipat tayo, nasa telepono na tayo
Oo
ngayon.
nga, nasa telepono na. Okay, Mon, sorry, yung sinasabi mo no, about the destruction to property, samahin mo na rin kasi pinag-uusapan namin ni Gretchen dito yung damage to agriculture.
Oo. Actually, tama kayo, no? Kanina, Sean, you're saying that hindi naman ganun kapopulated itong Northern Samar compared to NCR and nearby provinces when Typhoon Ondoy hit said region. Pero dito kasi sa Northern Samar, just to give you a picture, lahat ng mga bahay halos sira-sira talaga. And kung hindi sira, talagang tinangay na ng baha, no? Yung mga houses dito. That's why they are saying that the authorities were caught unprepared when, according to Northern Samar Governor Edwin Ongchuan, more than a month's amount of rainfall poured in the province within 1.5 days, with only a shear line as the weather system. And with their record, it is even 246 millimeters higher than what NCR and nearby provinces experienced during Ondoy. Here's what some of Northern Samar's local officials have to say.
More than a month's rainfall, it happened in just one and a half days. Doon namin na-experience yan. At worse, itong first time namin magkaroon ng flood na may current.
The expectation was around 150 to 200 millimeters of rain. But from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., that's 612 millimeters of rain. So medyo hindi namin talaga siya na-anticipate.
Mon, were there any confirmed casualties reported sa Northern Samar? And if, of course, ano pa yung specific causes of these fatalities?
Currently, there are already 2 confirmed casualties here in Northern Samar. The first one from the town of Sambuhan, who got hit by a fallen tree, and the second from the town of Katarman, who got drowned in the flood. As I reported, there are more than 84,000 also affected families after being hit by the said shear line in the Northern Samar province.
Okay. Mon, meron ding briefing na nangyari with the President. What were discussed? What did he say? What is his solution to this for them to be more prepared for this type of situation?
Yes, actually, a while ago, supposedly the President should be coming here personally to check the situation and have a situational briefing with the local officials and with the provincial officials on the ground. Unfortunately, hindi sila pinayagan because hindi nga pa rin maganda yung lagay ng panahon, kaya they do the briefing through a Zoom. And one of the things na pinapatutukan talaga ni PBBM is mabigyan ng sapat na supplies in terms of food and water or potable water ang mga affected residents. At the same time, he is also trying to say na dapat talaga ma-clear yung mga roads kasi ito yung mga pinaka-importante daw, especially that most of the towns of Northern Samar experience not just landslide but mudslide that blocked the roads na naging kahirapan nga para mapasok at makalabas from the said town. Especially that Katarman is the capital of the province.
Hey Mon, kamusta naman ang relief operations dyan sa probinsya? Ito, at saka ano yung mga adjustments na gagawin nila bilang yung shear line, Para pag sinabi mo kasi medyo hindi kabisado ng madlang people yung shear line na term. Ano po kaya yung mga adjustments nila to prepare for such an incident in the future?
Yes, actually, now they are, lesson learned as what they said kasi talagang hindi nga nila maintindihan nung una yung shear line as they described it. And so most of the residents don't took it seriously, itong naturang weather system. Pero ngayon, medyo pahirapan pa rin yung paghahatid ng mga relief goods because some of the barangays are still isolated at this point in time due to the rains na na-experience pa nga rin ng province. Ngayon lamang, just today, bumababa na yung level ng mga rivers dito ngayon at humihina na rin yung current. Ito kasi yung big challenge for the rescuers and the authorities to transport the relief goods to the affected barangays. So nagsisimula pa lang ngayon yung pamimigay ng mga relief packs sa mga barangays living near the river.
No, kasi the only way that they can actually travel to these barangays are through bangkas, and hindi talaga pinayagan ng mga authorities, particularly ng Philippine Coast Guard, ang mga magbibigay ng relief goods during the time na mataas pa yung level ng water sa river at saka malakas pa yung current. So ngayon, patuloy naman yung mga pinapadala dito ng mga relief goods according to DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian. And tomorrow, I think he will be coming over to supervise the said distribution.
Alright, Mon, bukod sa, of course, relief goods from the DSWD, what else is the national government doing bilang itong Northern Samar ay consistently nasa top 10 poorest provinces yan dito sa Pilipinas. Hirap ang mga tao dyan. Ano ba yung plano? Meron ba tayong NDRRMC mandate of some sort?
Actually, ang sinasabi nila dito talaga, tama ka Sean, no? One of the poorest provinces, itong Northern Samar, and they are admitting it. That's why hindi rin nila talaga kayang sagutin initially yung mga needs ng mga residents, no? Kung sa funds nila kukunin ng mga local government units. That's why they are really trying to ask help from the national government. And with the situation right now, most of the residents here are asking for some construction materials, and the housing authorities of the government, of the national government, are saying that they are willing to release some funds, particularly some amount of financial assistance to those who are damaged partially with their houses, and those who have totally damaged houses na at least pangsimula daw na panggawa ulit ng kanilang mga bahay. Pero aside from the construction materials that they are appealing, they still need food, clean water, medicine, mga damit, mga bagay na nawala sa kanila due to the flood and heavy rainfall here in the province.
Right, it is good to see that rains have somehow abated. Thank you so much for those updates. That was Mon Gualvez reporting to us live from Catarman, Northern Samar.
Ito na nga yung tanong, no, Gretch and Danny. Nag-abate na ba talaga yung mga ulan or lumipat lang? Kasi according to Pag-asa, this shear line could still bring significant amounts of rain in the next few days. However, in its weather advisory, Pag-asa forecasts that this will no longer affect Samar Province, but instead dump rains over Cagayan, Isabela, Aurora, and Quezon Province tomorrow, November 24. Come Saturday, the shear line will be affecting Batanes, Cagayan, Isabela, and Aurora. So pataas na yung urong nito sa eastern seaboard. And under these conditions, flooding and rain-induced landslides are possible, especially in areas that are high or very highly susceptible to these hazards. Pag-asa has advised concerned agencies and offices to take all necessary measures to protect life and property.
And this, of course, happening on the heels of that recent earthquake, that rocked the provinces in Mindanao. And President Bongbong Marcos was in General Santos City this morning to assess the extent of that damage. The president met with over 2,000 victims of the magnitude 6.8 earthquake that hit Gensan and Sarangani. They were given food packs and financial aid, while local authorities determined additional assistance that could be provided. According to FIVOLCS, aftershocks are still being felt in the area, which could last for a few more days. President Marcos also met with local officials to discuss the rebuilding process, particularly in the town of Glan in Sarangani, which was one of the hardest hit areas.
We are still in the assessment stage dahil patuloy pa rin yung mga aftershock. So, pati yung mga rebuilding, hindi pa natin pwedeng simulan dahil may aftershock pa. Ang malaking damage is structure, yung mga structure, yung pinaka mahirap yung sa Glan na puerto. At alam kong gamit na gamit yan. So, we will have to prioritize that in the recovery.
Siyempre, yung Sarangani nga is another one sa top 10 list of poorest provinces.
So it does need a lot of attention. And tama nga yung sabi ni Mon kanina, hindi lang relief goods, kundi construction materials, yung mga pabahay, how to rebuild their lives again and rebuild it better.
And it's so hard to predict these already with climate change, and Philippines in the top 4 or top 5 of
At
most,
risk,
at risk.
I wonder, though, how this will affect inflation in the next months to come. Price
With
of goods and
Christmas
commodities.
also around the corner.
Well, up next, with just 2 months left before the year ends, will the Philippines reach its 2023 growth target? Let's discuss that further with RCBC Chief Economist Mike Ricafort when the big story returns. Stay with us. back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
It seems 2023 is going by in a flash, and just like that, we're right about to cap off this year. The question for many, including market observers, is whether our economic growth manages to beat the target this year. We actually saw economic expansion pick up in the third quarter at 5.9% year-on-year, bringing the year-to-date average to 5.5%. Now, this target, or the target this year by the government at least, is between 6 to 7%. That's lower than the 7.6% growth we saw in 2022. If you ask Finance Chief Ben Diokno, there are a lot of bright spots to look forward to while we wait for the fourth quarter figure. That includes labor and employment, improving the debt-to-GDP ratio, and higher revenues from tax and non-tax collections.
With a promising outlook on the horizon, we're confident that we will achieve the lower end of our growth target of 6 to 7% this year and accelerate further to 6.5 to 8% from 2024 to 2028.
Well, you know, we're gonna have to grow 7.2% in the fourth quarter.
Well, somebody did the calculation.
To be able to just reach the minimum 6% that the government is saying. So,
However, Dan, no, last quarter, medyo nabulaga tayo, but in a good way. It came in a lot higher, I think, than people expected, than market observers expected. And I noticed that one crucial part of that uptick was an increase in public spending. That's, of course, vis-a-vis, no, yung bumababa nga yung household spending kasi ang mahal ng mga bilihin.
Pero sinasabi nila that this growth is because of the increase in government spending. But in the last quarter, we are challenged, of course, by the rising prices of food. Kasama din dyan yung non-alcoholic beverages. And October inflation slowed down to 4.9%. So I guess all those factors.
Yun nga, pero
but
kasi
then
no,
spending,
Christmas,
you can feel the traffic.
every time Christmas happens, tataas talaga. But I think in the last quarter of the year, public spending does tend to be higher kasi ubusan na ng budget.
That's true.
That's true.
So,
The question is, the odds are actually not in our favor to reach the 6.7%, but we have a history of beating the odds. That's
Right.
what they say. Will we beat the odds?
okay, you know, let's
But
hear.
we're kind of close, right? We are, diba, nasa ano tayo?
7.2 daw yung goal para mag-average out tayo ng
Ng
6.
Okay, medyo mahirap yun.
Mahirap yun.
Pero nasa 6 to 7% daw tayo 2023, di ba?
Tignan natin,
Oo,
okay?
yun ang
Let's see what the budget secretary
Malayo
had to, Amina Pangandaman had to say, I think, before we go out to Mike.
Well, here to share with us his insights on the Philippines' economic growth, we have on the line RCBC Chief Economist Mike Ricafort. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Gretchen, Sean, Danny, and to all our viewers.
Okay, do you share the optimism that Sean and Danny have about
Hindi ako optimistic. Hindi ako ganun ka-optimistic.
That the government
target
has.
this year?
Actually, it's possible kasi ngayon, the seasonal peak or maybe the highest demand or sales for many businesses and industries towards the holiday season in the fourth quarter. And besides, meron din kasing mga unique growth drivers. For example, the barangay and SK election. So that's one source of growth, no? And correct, yung yung accelerated government spending, especially on infrastructure after some slowdown earlier this year, no? Kaya medyo bumagal nung second quarter dahil sa some underspending. So ngayon, they already acknowledged that and they're working on that, no? Yun kasi yung that's part of the intervention measures, considering that the infrastructure spending is at least 5 to 6% of GDP, and that's relatively higher compared to 2 to 3% over the past 10 to 20 years, no? Kaya ano ba yung equation ng economy natin, no? Yung on the demand side, no? on the expenditure side rather. That's consumption plus investments plus government spending plus exports minus imports. So sa consumption, yan, kasi bukas na economy. Consumer spending accounts for at least 72% of the economy. Wala na restriction ngayon. Continuous pa rin yung recovery ng yung mga hard-hit na businesses and industries such as tourism, no? Kasi yung kinita ng tourism last year was $4 billion. Ang estimate this year, mga around $7 billion. Ang pre-pandemic, mga nandoon na, around $7 to $10 billion. And siyempre, yung yung employment figures are among the strongest levels, no? In terms of yung unemployment rate, kahit may konting uptick to 4.5%. No? That's still near among the lowest and among the best since the pandemic started. And generally, employment figures, lahat na, among the strongest in nearly 18 years or since 2005. Kaya isang bright spot din yun. If you look at the other indicators like yung manufacturing capacity utilization, that's more than 74%. That's the highest in nearly 5 years, October of 2018. Kaya, yun, on the investment side naman, yun, medyo nagka-slow down ng konti dahil, because of the relatively higher interest rates. No? But yung inflation din, medyo drag din yun realistically dahil yung higher prices of goods and services, that drags expenditures by practically everyone, consumers, households.
That's exactly my concern, Mike, no? Personally, ang mahal ng mga bilihin. Bukod pa doon, may meeting pa ang Monetary Board. So, posible nga, tumaas na naman ang rate hike. Ay, magkaroon na naman ng isa pang rate hike. In which case, lalong sasakit ang mga bulsa natin. How would all this play out bilang Christmas season na? Do you think tutuloyin itong interest rate hike bago magpasko?
Maring hindi naman siguro, Sean, kasi wala namang urgency para mag-hike ngayon. In fact, yung hike nga, yung off-cycle hike nga noong October 26 was it was a surprise, no? Despite the fact na kasi parang inunahan kasi it's something preemptive in nature. Kasi dahil nga, because of the Israel-Hamas war, no? So, wala namang so far manageable naman siya. Bumaba pa nga yung crude oil prices to the lowest in 3 to 4 months, no? Ngayon, mga nasa $76 yung NYMEX oil. Nagsimula yung gera, nasa $82 yun, tapos nag-peak ng 90. So, pababa na yung oil. Ang headline inflation, kahit paano, has been slowing down year on year. Gawa nga, because of the higher base effects. Yung October kasi, kaya naging 4.9 yun. Maganda kasi yung weather. But now, as reported earlier, may shear line sa southern Philippines. So, baka magkaroon ng konting uptick sa food prices dahil sa mga hard-hit areas ng shear line. No? Kasi normally, towards the end of the year, meron pa talagang storms, lalo na sa Visayas, Mindanao area. Kaya baka magkaroon ng uptick. Tsaka yung holiday season, may uptick talaga ng prices. Pag papalapit yung December and towards siyempre, may panggastos yung mga tao, increased demand. So may uptick in prices, but only to go down. Upon crossing the year, ito yung mga Noche Buena items, kasama rin dyan yung towards the end of the holiday season, yung mga prutas, yung mga pamahiin, and so on and so forth. Kaya yung rice naman, medyo may konting uptick. Realistically, bumaba na yan around nung anihan, no? During the early harvest season, middle of September to October. Tapos, medyo nag-pick up ng konti. Even the world prices, yung palay prices natin.
Speaking of higher prices, no, you mentioned the fuel prices are going down, but now with the OPEC cuts because of the slowing demand in the US and even China, are you expecting that the fuel prices will go up? And then you mentioned nga food inflation, and again, slowdown of growth globally. Won't that impact our exports, our manufacturing? Give us a general feel on the outlook for next year.
Yeah, Danny, true, no? Kasi yung geopolitics, medyo, Kaya nga there was this preemptive rate hike, no? October 26. Pero nag-pause na no November 16 yung policy rates natin, no? Kasi question mark yun. So far, so good. The world leaders, the world powers have done a great job in, at least through the diplomatic channels, no? Para hindi mag-widen at mag-escalate yung Israel-Hamas war to include the other Middle Eastern countries, especially the oil producers. So, yun nga lang yung doon. Itong OPEC, tinitignan natin. Dapat yung meeting nito this coming weekend. So, di-move nila to next weekend. Ayan kasi, kahit bago pa nagkaroon ng Israel-Hamas war, nag-cut ng production itong Saudi Arabia, pati Russia, no, mga around July, August, no. Schedule na yan until end December, in-extend nila, no. Kaya yung time na yon, umakit yung oil kasi bumaba na yung NYMEX oil to $63, yun yung pinakamababa. Nangalahati na lang yan from the high of $130 noon Russia-Ukraine war noong early part, March 7 yun last year. No? Ang lahat ay naging 63 no? From 130. Kaya naging defensive mode itong OPEC. Nag-cut sila. Umakyat bigla yung presyo. No? Noong nag-cut si Saudi and Russia, umakyat yan unti-unti. No? So umabot to as high as $95 so September 28. Kaya naramdaman natin yun. Yung, magmula July, di ba? May mga magpagtaas tayo ng mga gasolina, diesel. Ngayon, yun ang inaabangan na lahat, no? Kung gagawa ba sila similar to that. That's one of the, we have to watch out for that. Kasi, otherwise, kung hindi naman, mukha namang tama, dahil nga sa kaka-rate hike to better manage inflation by the Fed and the local central bank, yun, may konting economic slowdown. Yun talaga yung kapalit nun. Kasi ang mandate ng central banks around the world is to bring down or stabilize prices, yung mandate of price stability. So, ayun ang pinupulfill. Mukha namang naging matagumpay sila doon eh. Kasi papunta pa rin naman yung inflation. Doon sa inflation target natin, locally it's 4%. Malapit na. Siguro by November and December, on a year-on-year basis, a little over 4 would still be possible. And by first quarter, yun na. Pinakamababa na siguro yun. Yung mga 3% or even a little less than 3% yung January, lalo na kasi high base effect, mataas yung denominator last year. And for the rest of next year, kaya nga parang dalawa yung forecast. Pagka manageable naman yung geopolitics, lalo na doon sa Middle East, posible yung ma-achieve na yung target na 4% or below. Kaya hindi na kailangan mag-retire. Dahil ayun naman yung main objective is to anchor inflation within the inflation target. Ganon din naman yung stance ng Fed. No? Yung Fed kasi ganon din, pababa yung inflation sa US dahil nga nakokontrol yung oil. No? Dahil nagtatrabaho yung world powers, no? To contain yung mula si President Biden.
Mike, ibaba lang natin to ng konti. We're talking, of course, macroeconomics, etc., etc. I think bottom line, no, sa mga tao, syempre, myself included, mararamdaman ba natin tong mga growth na, kasi alam mo, nararamdaman natin yung inflation. Pero yung growth, kalimitan, hindi.
We are strongest in the region.
Exactly.
In
but
the third quarter.
right?
But
The poor
not sure if we
people,
feel
yeah.
that.
Do we
The
feel
poverty
it?
is still double digits, sir.
Yeah, so how do we bridge that gap? And how do we make this growth? I know there's no magic answer to this, but what needs to be done para maramdaman naman natin yung pag-asenso?
Well, ngayon, kailangan mag-create pa rin ng maraming employment, no? Yung mga jobs, livelihood. Actually ngayon, dahil, kasi ang importante naman, yung economic growth. Tapos yung mararamdaman natin lahat yan, lalo na yung poorest of the poor, yung mga masa. Pag mas mabilis yung economic growth, ibig sabihin, mas mabilis yung pag-grow ng incomes, no? Yung trabaho, livelihood, no? Yung kita, no? Dapat kasi mas mabilis yun. Kung estimate natin, realistically, yung target siguro 5.8%. That's yun na yung average, no? Pero pwede tayong ma-surprise Pwede talagang umabot yung average growth towards 6%, yung lower end ng target. That's possible. Kasi yung fourth quarter growth, that's at least 6.5% to 7% or even higher. No? Pwede tayo surpresahin yan. Dahil nga bukas na yung ekonomiya. Yun kasi yung mararamdaman na lahat, at least, magmula July 22, wala na yung COVID state of public health emergency. Wala na restrictions, and going forward, hindi yung priority. So if you compare that to 2 to 3 years ago, nung kasagsagan ng may mga lockdowns pa, pinagdadasal lang ng maraming tao, sana wala na itong pandemic. Ngayon, parang wala na normal na, patuloy pa rin yung pag-recover ng maraming industriya at maraming negosyo, lalo na yung mga tinamaan ng pandemic, turismo, yun, kasi it creates a lot of jobs no? Pati yung siguro yung intervention, yung government spending, dahil nga kailangan talaga i-maximize yung budget utilization ng maraming ahensya, lalo na yung sa infrastructure.
Speaking of government spending, Mike, where do you see opportunities for that, for government to help? Because sabi nga sa Business World Economic Forum that they expect the Philippines to be one of the fastest growing economies in the region amid a global slowdown. So, saang industriya o ano yung nakikita mong opportunity? Sabi nga na crisis breeds opportunity. But here in the Philippines, I guess we are in a unique place. What do you see bright spots moving forward?
Well, kasi ngayon yung major pillars natin, Gretchen. Ang Pilipinas kasi, fourth highest yan sa remittances sa buong mundo after after India, China, and Mexico. For a time, na-overtake pa nga natin yung Mexico 5 years ago. So, yung continuous growth nun, no? Tapos yung BPO din, no? Number 2 tayo sa buong mundo. It earns more than $35 billion per year. And yung 70 to 80% of that, contact center or call center, number 1 tayo doon. So, yung dalawang areas na yun, no? Kasi, dahil yun yung kaya ang lakas ng consumption natin, no? Kaya may pera yung mga Pilipino, no? Dahil doon may panggastos, no? May mga hanap buhay. Pangatlo na pillar, ito yung low-hanging fruit, turismo. Kasi lalong naglilikhayan ng maraming trabaho. Yun din one of the hardest hit for almost 2 years, no? May restrictions. Ano lang yan February last year lang nag-recover at patuloy pa na nagre-recover, no? We have yet to see yung group tours, yung mga maraming turista from China, from Korea, and Japan, yung mga nakaguluyan natin, yun, both local and foreign tourism, no? Maraming, opportunities for livelihood.
Paano yung
no?
tax, Mike? Balita namin, mukhang tutuloy na nga daw. And one way that the government wants to pump the economy is through higher tax collection to increase their revenue.
Digital,
para
sugar are on the list.
Pati single-use plastic, lahat pinatulan na. Although, I'm not sure kung ikaw yung nagsabi sa amin, no, na maliit lang yung impact nun. But could this also dampen spending? Private spending?
Iniingatan din yun kasi kahit pa paano, nakakaabag yun sa inflation. Kaya tatimingan yan, pag nag-stabilize pala yung inflation, ito yung importante, yung inflation, nagiging sustainable na, yung within the acceptable bounds. Sa loob ng isang taon, kasi 2 to 4% yung target ng BSP. So kung babalik na tayo sa range na yun, mas manageable na. Yung economic growth, mas mabilis towards 6%. Kasi maganda yung demographics natin Demographic sweet spot tayo, majority working age since 2015. So asahan na natin, 6% growth. Dahil we're coming from a low base, sumahabol pa lang tayo sa mga ating ASEAN neighbors, no? Yung yung per capita income, papunta pa lang tayo sa middle income status, no? So kaya importante din, i-boost din yung productivity ng agriculture, no? Kasi yun naman talaga yung tanging paraan na yung use of technology, increased mechanization, higher yielding seeds, irrigation, storage facilities. Ang bottom line nun, i-boost yung production, the use of technology, and mapababa yung production cost at bababa yung presyo ng agrikultura, lalo na yung bigas at marami pang food products.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. No, one last question because we're running out of time. Can you give us a forecast on the peso? Very practical question. And what is happening there? We're strengthening there, but they're saying that that's only because the U.S. is having a slowdown, or is it because our economy is really strong? And from 55 now, we were pushing 60 just a few weeks ago. What's your forecast on that for the year-end and next year?
Towards the end of the year, towards Christmas, seasonally, nag-appreciate talaga yung peso kasi magastos yung OFWs, no? Yung pating families nila. Lalo na the week before Christmas, ay yung pinaka-malakas ng piso. Kasi persado sila compulsory spending, they really need to convert to spend, no? At syempre, ganun din, yung mga dollar earners, yung exporters, nagbabayad na rin yan ng mga 13-month pay, yung mga BPO, yung iba pang mga dollar earners natin. So, papalakas siya seasonally, no? Pero, worldwide, medyo nakabawi na rin. Medyo nag-correct lower na rin yung dollar. Kasi ang forecast, dahil nga malapit, well-anchored na rin yung, at least, papunta na sa tamang direction yung inflation din sa US, no? Kaya, ang expectation, magpo-pause, higher for longer, medyo restrictive pa rin, yes, dahil 550 basis point yung total hike since last year ng Fed, no? Kaya, pero, yun, medyo may konting slowdown. Pero, ang inflation naman, bumababa. Kaya, may possibility na the markets are already pricing in possible Fed rate cuts, no? That might it could total 100 basis point cut by next year, and yung Fed futures are pricing 50 basis point cuts, no, by July. Kaya medyo maganda sa market ng tuwan-tuwa yung market, so far so good since November. All systems go. Gumaganda yung peso, pati yung ibang emerging market currencies, medyo may improvement sa stock market, bumababa na yung bond yield. So, medyo nag-improve na yung natin. Yung kahit yung financial markets, pati peso. Kaya maganda, it augurs well also for the overall economy. Kasi kung na-control na yung inflation, tapos bukas yung economy, reopening narrative, continuous recovery ng maraming industriya, yun, all systems go, no? At kasi yung economic growth talaga natin dahil isa tayo sa huling mga bansa na nakaabot ng demographic dividend. So talagang yung economic growth na 6% at least for in the foreseeable future, possible pa rin yun, no? At bumalik na tayo sa trend average from 2012 to 2019, ang average economic growth natin at least 6%. So,
Magandang balita yan, ano?
Oo,
pesos
tuloy-tuloy.
strengthening.
Pero yun lang, pagka na-hit natin yung inflation target natin, biglang may bagong tax.
Pero hindi, pero huwag ka muna magpapapalit ng dolyar mo.
Exactly.
Kasi the peso
Sir,
will
dapat-
strengthen. I guess it's good to know
Swerte kung marami kang dollars.
what we're gonna do for the next months. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. RCBC Chief Economist, Mike Ricafort.
Thank you, sir.
thank you so much and have a pleasant
Taking a quick break right after that. Members of the cabinet will begin discussions on the Philippines' position regarding the ICC probe into the war on drugs. The details when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're back on the big story here on One News. The 31st Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum in Manila formally began today. Senate President Mig Zubiri and House Speaker Martin Romualdez welcomed around 300 parliament members from 28 countries in the region. Among the topics that will be discussed in the forum is the territorial dispute in the West Philippine Sea. Let's get some updates on what happened on day one of that forum. Let's bring in Julie Baiza for the details. Hi, Julie. What happened today?
Sean, that's right. In just the first day of the 31st Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum, the Philippines has already raised the issue in the West Philippines to countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri and House Speaker Martin Romualdez personally led the opening of the forum. Now, in the resolution presented by lawmakers, the Philippine government is urging the Member of Parliament to support the crafting of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. This, however, did not make any mention of the 2016 arbitral ruling. The reason for that is so they can also secure the support and participation of China.
Kung ilalagay po natin yung issue on the West Philippine Sea dyan, sigurado po may aalma, baka may magalit, and hindi po tayo makakuha ng consensus. What we're trying to do is to get a consensus from all member states. We're only host, there's 19 other countries, and of course, on day one, ayaw po natin makipag-away kaagad.
However, the Southern Theater Command of China's military recently said that the Philippines enlisted, quote, foreign forces to patrol the South China Sea and has been stirring up trouble since Tuesday. This comes after the Philippines launched joint sea and air patrols with the U.S. military. Sean, aside from talks about the territorial disputes in the West Philippine Sea, the issues of transnational crimes, the economy, and climate change are also prioritized for the discussion in the Parliament Forum. The Philippines will reportedly use the hosting of the forum as an opportunity to garner support from other countries for its plan to run for a seat on the UN Security Council in 2027. Sean?
Thanks so much for those updates. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza.
Justice Secretary Boying Remulla is set to meet with Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin next week to seek the government's official position on calls for the country to cooperate in the International Criminal Court's probe into the war on drugs. One of the things he wishes to clarify is whether the Philippines should rejoin the ICC.
Ang resolution sa House kasi tells us to work with the ICC. Pero ang first question is, why will we work with the ICC now that we are no longer members of the ICC? Diba? Are we going to be members again of the ICC first for this thing to happen? I-clarify lang. Kasi kung may balak ba tayong maging miyembro muli ng ICC dahil sa sinasabi ng Kongreso, I want to know how it affects the whole universe of the ICC and the Philippine government as it is right now.
It was in March 2019 when the Philippines officially withdrew from the ICC. For Remulla, it is clear that the Philippines is no longer a member of the world's only permanent war crimes tribunal, but with several resolutions filed in the House urging government to cooperate in the drug war probe, Remulla said he will now look into the records, arguments, and discussion to understand the real score of the matter.
Okay, and of course, may reaction dyan, no? Si Vice President Sara Duterte. I'm talking about those resolutions filed in the House. She reminded lawmakers in a statement what President Marcos said a few months ago, that, quote, any probe conducted by the ICC would be an intrusion into our internal matters and a threat to our sovereignty. Duterte noted that the president's stand is clear, and with that, she is urging the House to respect President Marcos's position as he is the chief architect of the Philippines' foreign policy. The Vice President added that allowing ICC prosecutors to investigate alleged crimes that are now under the exclusive jurisdiction of our prosecutors and our courts is not only patently unconstitutional, but effectively belittles and degrades our legal institutions. So malapit na natin malaman kung ano yung final decision. After a few weeks of discussing this,
Actually, naalala mo si DOJ Sec Miko Clavanio was here and we asked him kung may change of tone ba. So I went back at the statements of Justice Remulla. Nung July, sinabi niya, ICC is not welcome here in the Philippines. Nung September 2022, sinabi niya, ICC prosecutor is doing our courts a disservice for the challenging the Philippine justice system. And now, sinasabi niya, the ICC probe needs further study. At nung tinanong siya kung open ba yung ating presidente na makipag-dialogue with the ICC, he says it is diplomacy that we have to practice.
yes. But in between that change of tune, we have to note that the first resolution was filed. Kaya nag-iba yung tono ni Secretary of Justice
First
Boying
resolution
Remulla.
by the majority.
First resolution, no, actually by the minority, the one that was filed by the Makabayan Bloc.
Yun yung dati.
Yun yung dati. Doon niya unang sinabi, after mag-file ng resolution yung minority bloc, calling for the country to allow in ICC prosecutors, ang sinabi ni Secretary Remulla ay, we will study it. And then we had Asek Clavanio here, and he said, our stance hasn't changed, but we will have to respect kung ano yung sinabi ng House as a co-equal branch.
And again, you have former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque hinting, or not even hinting, saying outright that this is politically motivated by the House Speaker, of course, possibly as something against Vice President Sara Duterte. Of course, we know that Harry Roque is an ally of the Dutertes. He says that speaker is behind these attacks and carrying out this probe of the ICC or rejoining the ICC as part of a personal attack.
Okay, but you
on
know
Sara
what?
Duterte.
Actually, the House Speaker has not at all commented on this, but he did today for the first time. And he has reacted to Roque's accusations. Here, let's hear it straight from the House Speaker himself.
Our good friend, former Secretary Harold Roque, must have thoughts that, well, he has got his ideas. We respect his thoughts and opinions, but they're not accurate. So I'll just put it at that, and there's nothing to it. A lot of speculation, but none of that is true.
And in addition to that, Sean, he also defended these House resolutions by backing the ICC, saying that the lower house is just following the correct process. The chamber's leadership is merely listening to its members. Let's take a listen.
We have to be sensitive and responsive to the mga hinahin po ng ating mga kongresista. And so we have to look at it, one at a time, and within the talk context, of the current events, and that's where we leave it. We don't read much more into it than what other people do, but nonetheless, they are still entitled to their own views and even their speculations, but we leave it at that.
Okay, meanwhile, on another situation, we are still uncertain about the state of the Filipino seafarers aboard the hijacked cargo ship in the Red Sea. But what we know is that on Wednesday, the commander of the Houthi rebel group that hostage the Galaxy Leader vessel visited the ship, which the group claims is owned by an Israeli businessman. Footage of the visit shows the commander shaking hands with the crew members, but no updates were given on the state of the Filipino hostages. The Houthi group said that they will continue to target Israel-linked vessels crossing the Red Sea in retaliation to Israel's offensive in Gaza. Now, for his part, President Marcos says the Foreign Affairs Department is now in coordination with its counterparts in Iran, Oman, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia for some updates. The Migrant Workers Department is meanwhile in regular communication with the hostages' families. Marcos assures that the government is doing everything in its power to bring home safely the 17 Filipino seafarers held hostage by the Houthi rebels.
Right, before we go, let's check in on the situation at the Mayon volcano. Our big picture tonight is this image of Mayon taken last night, clearly showing that orange lava glow. The volcano is still under alert level 3 status and has been for a while now, which means that relatively high level of unrest is expected with the possibility of an eruption. PHIVOLCS has noted increased activity from Mayon's summit crater since June. And just this Monday, it spewed ash and gas affecting parts of Ginobatan town in Albay.
That's the last thing we need. From an earthquake to flooding to Mayon volcano erupting before the end of the year.
It
Sana
does
naman
serve
hindi.
as
Sana
a
next year
reminder
naman.
for us that climate change is real. We are victims at the end of that. But yung Mayon, syempre, pinipicturean niya ng mga photographer mula sa malayo.
Yes, meron sila.
Oo.
It's kind of strange, no, how it's a tourist destination kasi you can safely view the unrest from safe resorts.
For now.
We do hope it does not get any worse or affect anybody, especially during the holiday season.
Right, hoping, of course, for a very peaceful holiday season for everyone, not just here in the Philippines, but around the world. That's it for the show tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in and have a good night.